Namaste, Dhanava Pranam. By the instructions and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad, Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 16, texts 13 through 15. Tatra tatro pasrinvana svapurvesham mahatmanam praghiyamanam shayasa Krishna mahatmya sukshakam atmanam cha paritratam asvatam nostra tejasa sneham cha vrishni partanam tesham bhaktim cha keshave Tebhya parama santushta pratyurjabhita lochana mahadhanani vashamsi dadhoharan mahamana. Wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon Asvatthama. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vrishni and Pritha, due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklaces and clothing. Purport. Kings and great personalities of the state are presented with welcome addresses. This is a system from time immemorial, and Maharaj Parīkṣit, since he was one of the well-known emperors of the world, was also presented with addresses of welcome in all parts of the world as he visited those places. The subject matter of those welcome addresses was Krishna. Krishna means Krishna and his eternal devotees, as the king means the king and his confidential associates. Krishna and his unalloyed devotees cannot be separated, and therefore glorifying the devotee means glorifying the Lord and vice versa.
Call Stockton University. This is a reminder. Call Stockton University.
Maharaj Parīkṣit would not have been glad to hear about the glories of his forefathers like Maharaj Yudhisthira, Arjuna, and others, had they not been connected with the acts of Lord Krishna. The Lord descends specifically to deliver his devotees. Pratranaya sadhunam. The devotees are glorified by the presence of the Lord because they cannot live for a moment without the presence of the Lord and his different energies. The Lord is present for the devotee by his acts and glories, and therefore Maharaj Parīkṣit felt the presence of the Lord when he was glorified by his acts, especially when he was saved by the Lord in the womb of his mother. The devotees of the Lord are never in danger, but in the material world, which is full of dangers at every step, the devotees are apparently placed into dangerous positions. And when they are saved by the Lord is glorified. Lord Krishna would not have been glorified as the speaker of Bhagavad Gita had his devotees like the Pandavas not been entangled in the battlefield of Parīkṣit. All such acts of the Lord were mentioned in the devotees in the addresses of welcome, and Maharaj Parīkṣit, in full satisfaction, rewarded those who presented such addresses. The difference between the presentation of welcome addresses today and in those days is that formerly the welcome addresses were presented to a person like Maharaj Parīkṣit. The welcome addresses were full of facts and figures, and those who presented such addresses were sufficiently rewarded, whereas in the present days, the welcome addresses are presented not always with the factual statements, but to please the post holder, and often they are full of flattering lies. And rarely are those who present such welcome addresses rewarded by the poor receiver. Text 16. Saratya Parshada Sevana Sakya Dautya Virasanano Gamana Stavana Pranaman Snigdeshu Pandushu Jagat Pratinim Cha Vishnur Bhaktim Karoti Nrapatis Charana Vinde. Maharaj Parīkṣit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc., according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parīkṣit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Purport. Lord Krishna is everything to the unalloyed devotees like the Pandavas. The Lord was for them the Supreme Lord, the spiritual master, the worshipable deity, the guide, the chariot driver, the friend, the servant, the messenger, and everything they could conceive of. And thus the Lord was also reciprocated the feelings of the Pandavas. Maharaj Parīkṣit, as a pure devotee of the Lord, could appreciate the Lord's transcendental reciprocation of the feelings of his devotees. And thus he himself also was overwhelmed with the dealings of the Lord. Simply by appreciating the dealings of the Lord with his pure devotees, one can attain salvation. The Lord's dealings with his devotees appear to be ordinary human dealings, but one who knows them in truth becomes at once eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord. And by such unalloyed determination, they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. Text 17. Tasyaivam vartamanasya purvesham vritim anvaham nati dure kilaschayam yadasitani bodhame. Now you may hear from me of what happened while Maharaj Parīkṣit was passing his days hearing the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in thought of them. Text 18. Dharma padai kina charan vichayam upalabhyagam prachati samshruvadanam vivatsam eva mataram. The personality of religious principles, Dharma, was wandering about in the form of a bull, and he met the personality of earth in the form of a cow, who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus Dharma questioned the earth as follows. Purport. The bull is the emblem of the moral principle, and the cow is the representative of the earth. When the bull and the cow are in a joyful mood, it is to be understood that the people of the world are also in a joyful mood. The reason is that the bull helps production of grains in the agricultural field, and the cow delivers milk. The miracle of aggregate food values. The human society, therefore, maintains these two important animals very carefully, so that they can wander everywhere in cheerfulness. But at the present moment of this age of Kali, both the bull and the cow are now being slaughtered and eaten up as foodstuff by a class of men who do not know the Brahminical culture. The bull and the cow can be protected for the good of all human society simply by the spreading of Brahminical culture as the topmost perfection of all cultural affairs. By advancement of such culture, the morale of society is properly maintained, and so peace and prosperity are also attained without extraneous effort. When Brahminical culture deteriorates, the cow and bull are mistreated, and the resultant actions are prominent by the following symptoms. Text 19. Dharma uvacha kachid padre namayam atmanaste Vichayasi mlayetasan mukena alakshaye bhavatim antar adim dure bandhum sochasi chana chanamba. Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked, Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place? Purport. The people of the world in this age of Kali are full of anxieties. Everyone is diseased with some kind of ailment. From the very faces of the people of this age, one can find out the index of the mind. Everyone feels the absence of his relative who is away from home. The particular symptom of the age of Kali is that no family is now blessed to live together. To earn a livelihood, the father lives at a place far away from the son, or the wife lives far away from the husband, and so on. There are sufferings from internal diseases, separation from those near and dear, and anxieties for maintaining the status quo. These are but some important factors which make the people of this age always unhappy. Text 20. Padharnyuman sochasi maikapadam atmanam vavrishalar bokshamhanam aho swaradin hrita yagya bhagan praja utasvin bhagavatya varshati. I have lost my 3 legs and am now standing on only one. Are you lamenting for my state of existence, or are you in great anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat-eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings, because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for the living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought? Purport. With the process of the age of Kali, 4 things particularly, namely the duration of life, mercy, the power of recollection, and the moral or religious principles, will gradually diminish. Since Dharma, or the principles of religion, would be lost in the proportion of the 3 out of 4, the symbolic bull was standing on only 1 leg. When 3/4 of the population of the whole world become irreligious, the situation is converted into hell for the animals. In the age of Kali, godless civilizations will create so many called religious societies in which the personality of Godhead will be directly or indirectly defied. And thus faithless societies of men will make the world uninhabitable for the saner section of people. There are gradations of human beings in terms of proportionate faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first class faithful men are the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas, then the Kshatriyas, then the Vaishyas, then the Sudras, when the Mlechas, the Yavanas, and at last the Chandalas. The degradation of the human instinct begins from the Mlechas and the Chandala state of life is the last word of human degradation. All the above terms mentioned in the Vedic literatures are never meant for any particular community or birth. They are different qualifications of human beings in general. There is no question of birthright or community. One can acquire the respective qualifications by one's own effort, and thus the son of Vaishnava can become a Mlecha, or the son of a Chandala can become more than a Brahmana, all in terms of their association and intimate relation with the Supreme Lord. The meat eaters are generally called Mlechas, but all the meat eaters are not Mlechas. Those who accept meat in terms of scriptural injunctions are not Mlechas, but those who accept meat without restriction are called Mlechas. Beef is forbidden in the scriptures, and the bull and cow are offered special protection by followers of the Vedas. But in this age of Kali, people will exploit the body of the bull and cow as they like, and thus they will invite sufferings of various types. The people of this age will not perform any sacrifice. The Mlecha population will care very little for performances of sacrifices, although performance of sacrifice is essential for persons who are materially engaged in sense enjoyment. In the Bhagavad Gita 3.14 through 16, performance of sacrifices is strongly recommended. The living beings are created by the creator Brahma, and just to maintain the created living being progressively toward the path of back to Godhead, the system of performing sacrifice is also created by him. The system is that the living beings live on the produce of grains and vegetables, and by eating such foodstuffs, they get vital power of the body in the shape of blood and semen. And from blood and semen, one living being is able to create other living beings. But the production of grains, grass, etc. becomes possible by rain. And this rain is made to shower properly by performance of recommended sacrifices. Such sacrifices are directed by the rites of the Vedas, namely Yama, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. In the Manu Smriti, it is recommended that by offerings of sacrifice on the altar of fire, the sun god is pleased. When the sun god is pleased, he properly collects water from the sea, and thus sufficient clouds collect on the horizon and rains fall. After sufficient rainfall, there is sufficient production of grains for men and all animals, and thus there is energy in the living being for progressive activity. The Mlechas, however, make plans to install slaughterhouses for killing bulls and cows along with other animals, thinking that they will prosper by increasing the number of factories and live on animal food without caring for performance of sacrifices and production of grains. But they must know that even for the animals, they must produce grass and vegetables, otherwise the animals cannot live. And to produce grass for the animals, they require sufficient rains. Therefore, they have to depend ultimately on the mercy of the demigods like the sun god, Indra, and Chandra, and such demigods must be satisfied by the performance of sacrifice. This material world is a sort of prison house. As we have several times mentioned, the demigods are the servants of the Lord, who see to the proper upkeep of the prison house. These demigods want to see that the rebel living beings who want to survive faithlessly are gradually turned toward the supreme power of the Lord. Therefore, the system of offering sacrifice is recommended in the scriptures. The materialistic men want to work hard and enjoy fruit of results for sense enjoyment. Thus, they are committing many types of sins at every step of life. Those, however, who are consciously engaged in the devotional service of the Lord are transcendental to all varieties of sin and virtue. Their activities are free from the contamination of the three modes of material nature. For the devotees, there is no need for performance of prescribed sacrifices because the very life of the devotee is a symbol of sacrifice. But persons who are engaged in fruitive activities for sense enjoyment must perform the prescribed sacrifices because that is the only means to get free from the reaction of all sins committed by fruitive workers. Sacrifice is the means for counteracting such accumulated sins. The demigods are pleased when such sacrifices are performed, just as prison officers are satisfied when the prisoners are turned into obedient subjects. Lord Chaitanya, however, has recommended only one yajna, or sacrifice, called the Sankirtan Yajna, the chanting of Hare Krishna, in which everyone can take part. Thus, both devotees and fruitive workers can derive equal benefit from the performances of Sankirtan Yajna. Thus ends our reading for today. We will continue from text 21 on Monday, hopefully. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Srila Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Vigyan Moni Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Arupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Nrsimhapuri Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ekachakra Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Giri Govardhan, Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai, Sham Kund Radha Kund ki jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai, Nitai Gora Hari 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 Bol. Dhanyavad Pranam.